Tera Blast just got banned from every official Smogon tier. But why does a move that's been legal for 1,000 days suddenly get banned? Well, first, the reason why the Tera ban took so long to happen is because the move was extremely controversial. Tera Blast is a universal move that uses your Tera type once you terrestrialize, giving all Pokemon a 120 base power coverage move, adding a lot of uncertainty to movesets while making certain Pokemon completely broken. Regieleki, for example, is extremely fast and powerful, but has no way to beat ground types. But with Tera Blast Ice to beat ground types, Regieleki becomes unstoppable. The move flips entire matchups without warning, and scouting a potential Tera Blast can waste too many turns. Some Pokemon can even use multiple Tera Blast types, adding to the randomness factor. The counterplay to Tera Blast is finicky at best and potentially game-breaking at worst. Because Tera Blast is such a weird and unprecedented move, every player had their own differing opinion, which is a problem because Smogon bans are based on a community vote called a suspect test. For something to be suspect tested in the first place, it needs community-wide support and even more support to reach the 60% ban majority, and there was quite a lot of support for keeping Tera Blast legal. While on the pro-ban side, players, even if they agree to ban the move, would still argue on different points for why the move should be banned. The Tera Blast fans and social infighting made gauging support for a Tera Blast suspect test very tricky, so instead, Smogon decided to rely on hard data. Surveys for ranking problems in the overused tier were created, and Tera Blast was one of those options. But surprisingly, Tera Blast always had low scores, confirming that banning the move wasn't a community interest, so Smogon would never act on Tera Blast despite years of players complaining about the move. And honestly, Smogon's reasoning is shaky. Tera Blast is more nuanced than anything we've ever seen before, which is exactly why earlier this month, the OU tier leader opened a public discussion about Tera Blast. And with enough valid points for banning Tera Blast, a suspect test after 1,000 days finally happened. But after so long, what made players think Tera Blast was still ban-worthy? Well, Tera Blast can't be spammed since you can only Tera one Pokemon, so it can't be over-centralizing. And if Tera Blast made a Pokemon overpowered, the Pokemon would be banned instead of the move. Logically, banning Tera Blast makes no sense, except for one reason: competitive integrity. Much like Hidden Power, Tera Blast is just really annoying. Your opponents can randomly have any type coverage and win or lose based on that gamble. There's even been tournament finals decided entirely on what Tera Blast type a Pokemon has. Yeah, the teammates in sets can give clues on what a Tera Blast type could be, but players aren't always 100% logical when building teams. Some players use Tera Blast to improve coverage overall, but many use Tera Blast to beat one specific Pokemon in the entire tier. Since humans are not always logical, Tera Blast goes from creative to almost random. That is what pro-ban players argued on the most. Sure, Tera Blast is insanely strong with no drawback. You can argue it's straight up broken. And yes, banning Tera Blast would lead to cool Pokemon being unbanned. But most importantly, Tera Blast adds too much unnecessary variance to a competitive game. However, that's exactly what Tera Blast fans enjoyed. They saw creativity in Pokemon having any coverage option. They enjoyed the high variance, making for fun ideas and raising the skill ceiling of the game even higher. Tera Blast also allows certain movesets to exist that are no longer viable without it. Generally, the premise on keeping Tera Blast was for fun and to preserve the base game mechanics as much as possible. To be charitable, yes, these reasons are very subjective, but prioritizing personal enjoyment in a hobby you like is valid. The more objective talking points in favor of Tera Blast is the amount of users being low. But I don't think that holds much weight either. You are basically saying the water leak isn't big enough, so don't patch it at all. Regardless of the objectivity of the reasonings, many players wanted to save Tera Blast, but just as many wanted to ban it too, and the vote came down to a 61% majority to ban Tera Blast. So what happens now? Well, Smogon and multiple tiers began unbanning Pokemon that use Tera Blast, like Regieleki in Overused. Roaring Moon might get unbanned too. It's more manageable without Tera Blast Fairy, and its existence adds needed diversity to the tier. For example, Orcupon Wellspring is a big problem in the metagame, and Roaring Moon can help keep it in check. There's also Yanmega and Comfey who got unbanned from rarely used, as they can't beat Steel types after losing Tera Blast ground. All of this is another benefit of banning Tera Blast. Balancing tiers is way simpler now. But what about the Pokemon who didn't get banned from Tera Blast? How does the move being gone affect them? It's quite complicated because it's not only about Tera Blast users, but also Pokemon who don't use Tera Blast. Plenty of Pokemon are not threatened anymore by former Tera Blast abusers. Heatran can safely switch into Iron Moth because there's no Tera Blast ground. Great Tusk doesn't have to worry about Tera Blast Fairy Kingambit destroying it. The consequences of the Tera Blast ban are complex, but we'll go over every noteworthy change and overused. Also, if you can't tell because of the editing quality, this is my first video, so subscribe. It only gets better from here. Dragonite is the best Pokemon in overused and also the most affected by the Tera Blast ban. With Dragon Dance and Tera Blast, it could literally do anything. You had Tera Blast Ghost for Zamazenta, Fairy for defensive utility and general coverage, Flying had raw power from the damage boost. Dragonite truly had no limits. But without Tera Blast, all that flexibility is gone. Dragonite is now locked into a few predictable options: Tera Normal for extreme speed, Tera Ground for Earthquake, or Tera Fire for scaled shot sets. The set diversity was cut in half, so now defensive counterplay against Dragonite is consistent. Dragonite is still a top tier Pokemon, but now it's for more defensive reasons like beating Ogerpon Wellspring. Iron Moth is another huge loser. It lost Tera Blast ground, ghost, and water coverage, which let it break through anything it wanted. Pokemon like Heatran, Slowking Galar, Garganacl, even Tyranitar were not safe against random Tera Iron Moth. But now those same matchups are extremely stable. Iron Moth is still viable with its other coverage moves like Energy Ball or Dazzling Gleam, but it's nowhere near as unpredictable. But the largest change might be Kyurem. Before, Tera Blast Dragon Dance Kyurem could warp entire matchups. It had fire for steel types like Kingambit or electric for water types like Primarina. The right Tera Blast could win the game on the spot. In fact, the set was so strong, Kyurem almost got banned. That level of variance was incredibly overwhelming, no matter the team you used. However, that pressure is now gone. A sweeper Kyurem can't pick and choose its answers anymore. This Pokemon went from a matchup-based nightmare to something you can actually prepare for. And there's way more examples than just the big three. Rillaboom can't break Corviknight and Moltres anymore with Tera Blast Fire and Electric. Ceruledge loses its fairy coverage against dark types, making it vulnerable to Tinglu and Samurott Tsui. Kingambit loses its fairy mid-ground coverage entirely, having to pick between Low Kick or Iron Head. If Kingambit uses Low Kick, then Weezinggalar and Primarina are bad matchups. Meanwhile, Iron Head beats those Pokemon, but you struggle against dark types. Enamorus can't abuse Stellar Blast Contrary Boost, or hard punish opposing Teras. Raging Bolt can't bully dragons anymore with a surprise Tera Blast Fairy. Even Landorus loses key offensive pressure since Tera Blast Flying is removed, buffing Gliscor, defensive Landorus, and Great Tusk. But worst of all, Calm Mind Iron Crown now has to use Focus Blast. There's also non-overused affected Pokemon within overused, like Excadrill losing Tera Blast Ice, indirectly buffing Landorus Therian and Gliscor. Or how without Tera Blast Fairy, Moltres Galar can't beat Kingambit anymore. Just like how Polteageist also can't beat Kingambit without Tera Blast Fighting. And overall, defensive teams get buffed because they aren't pressured by Tera Blast wall breakers anymore. Balance and stall teams can focus more on utility moves instead of hard countering the same Pokemon multiple times. I think this is helpful since offensive teams have been extremely strong for the entire generation. But comment how you feel about the Tera Blast ban. I'll reply to all of them. And we can't forget about Regieleki. Can he do anything in OU now that he's unbanned? Well, the answer is maybe. Regieleki has two use cases, a screen setter or hazard remover. Regieleki is the fastest Pokemon ever, perfect for setting up Reflect and Light Screen immediately. There is competition with Grimmsnarl, Deoxyspeed, and Zamazenta in this role, but none of them can remove Spikes or Stealth Rock. Regieleki's Rapid Spin is extremely valuable in OU because nearly every Pokemon lost Defog. With two key roles in one, this can revive Screen's hyper offense in ways we've never seen before. Realistically though, Regieleki is such a limited Pokemon in stats and move pool that it's just as likely to fail as it is to succeed. There's no creativity you can do with Regieleki. It either works or it doesn't at all. So only time will tell.